they won't care. Cool. Well, we might review a little bit then of kind of what we did yesterday, and then throw in a whole bunch of more stuff. I had thought, just for the heck of it, I don't remember in many past clinics dealing a lot with any of the weapon aspects or traditional weapon aspects like the Jo and the Boken and Aikido. As some of you, I'm sure many of you know, there's some techniques in Sankata, Kordai Sankata, and some again in Roku Kata. But, how often do we get to play with those? And there are some ideas with, there's 5 techniques in Sankata, Jo Dori, that dealing with the uke having a Jo. So we were playing with a little bit of a couple of those, but there's also a whole bunch of other ideas that I wanted to play with that are not in Sankata or Roku Kata, dealing with the Jo. And hopefully they can, and the main reason for that is just to find other ways of expressing the same principles that we all know and love and are used to. And then it doesn't really matter. You don't really do anything special or different when somebody's got something in their hand. The principles are the same. But sometimes I have a tendency to think, I wonder, that we practice all the time empty hands, just guys coming at us with nothing in our hands, that should push come to shove and we're out on the proverbial street and the ninjas jump out and the samurai and they've got something in their hand. I don't know what it could be. I think there was a story, I remember, I think it was a Milwaukee mayor or something was at the fair and he was walking out with his family and he saw some guy with a pipe, like the Clue game or something like that. We was attacking. I don't know. I think it was like the grandmother of his ex-girlfriend's man who had a baby and something like that. And the mayor goes over to stop, and the guy just beats the crap out of him with a pipe. So sometimes I wonder if we get used to working with some, and then the moment we see that they've got something in their hand, that there might be a bit of a pause, a bit of a deer in the headlights moment. We think, what do I do in this? Well, you don't really honestly do anything different, and probably eventually when the shit hits the fan, your Aikido will come out. But I don't know. I'd like to personally. I'd like to try and spend a little bit more time dealing with other objects, other things in hand, and you're also dealing with different distances, and whatnot. So, anyway, enough of that. We're going to play with some Jo stuff. Real quick. Let's see, we got a 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, cool. Well, Dale comes out. We'll be odd, but that's all right. Some of us are already odd.
Yeah, good job, Dale.
So what I'd like you to do, well, John was here, so he's going to do what I'd like you to do is start off and get your partner. And the basic, let me take it back from here. The basic attack, and if you've done Sankata, you can, some schools of thought have treated the attack as like a spear, which I think is where a lot of techniques come from, the Yari, which is a Japanese spear. But then if you have Jodo influences, sometimes you'll see guys draw it back and step and thrust like a Kaishizu type of technique. Either way is fine. We just want something, a line of energy to deal with, something that's penetrating the Mai, and we can just go from one step. Some folks have done Sankata in 3 steps. We're just going from one step. And measure your distance, and he's aiming for about my solar plexus, just for safety. And we're going to start just by getting off of the line with a forward goblet step. And we're keying off a couple of things, learning to move and activate our motion when this enters our personal space rather than anything over here. But at the same time, I don't want to be thinking about and looking at this thing, right? I don't want to focus, because chances are you're going to be late and you'll get poked. So keep an eye on him and the whole system here, the whole entity, and be aware of that. And then once you've done that a little bit, start introducing your hand just a little bit, either one or both, where I'm just kind of lightly touching. I'm not grabbing or doing anything funky just yet. I'm just putting a connection out there. It's where I can get a feel now for where he is in space and where his weapon is in space. And it can be the right hand, a mirror hand. It can be this hand. It can be both, right? And then, right, so you got that. Just the goblet step by itself and then add a hand. And then add to that a little, as he comes forward, just a back step. Just right out of the walking con and connect with it with your hand or both. Right? Cool. So let's just do that much. Grab a partner, grab a stick, and attempt to kill each other. How we do. So now let's add a little bit to that. These first two, if you've done Sankata, you probably recognize them. I'll borrow Dale. I'm going to start with going to as Dale put it, the iffy side. Most of the time in Aikido, we spend our time getting to this spot, Shikaku, the dead zone, the safety zone, where all his weapons are pointed out there and my weapons are pointed at him. This, not bad. I'm still kind of perpendicular to his line, but I'm still in the way of his weapons. We'll deal with that first. He's got this forward energy going, right? This line of energy that I don't want to stop and I don't want to interrupt. If anything, I would like to keep it continuing. I like to think of it like I'm maybe pulling a rope. I don't know, I'm a longshoreman on what's the show on Discovery Channel? The guys in Alaska and the deadliest catch, and I'm pulling traps out of the water. So I'm not so much, we'll just have him hold still for a second. I'm not so much climbing to get to him as much as I'm welcoming him into me. And oh wow, there's a hand into his face, right? So you get this sort of splitting like a wishbone idea. That's pretty interesting. So I'm stepping forward with my left foot to the inside. My left hand makes contact, feeding it to my right hand as my hands are continuing that energy going down that line of that Jo until we get to the face. Right. One more time. Yeah. And another thing I want you to keep, hang on a second. Stay, sit. Good boy. Another thing I want you to keep in mind too as we're doing all these is what happens after the technique is done. Sometimes we get a little casual, oh, that was fun, and we turn our back on the guy and walk around. But bear in mind that after I've knocked him down, I may still be kind of in the vicinity of the guy, or I might be walking over here and he can do shit if he's a bastard. That, and if I'm just randomly holding the Jo in an odd, just casual position, there's, likelihood he wants the damn thing back. So once you're throwing the guy on the ground, bear in mind that distance and keeping an eye on the guy. If you feel comfortable with your weapon, you can kind of keep it on him. Otherwise, I would keep it as far away from him as possible so that he doesn't come reaching for it. But right? So don't trust your partner. Shiftiness. Right? So show me how to play with it. I'll borrow Mr. Kirby over there. Ha ha ha. Just for fun. So, right, okay, so we've taken that advancing side step to, there you go. Like, what? Where am I at? To the inside, boom, and gone to his center. Now we're going to take the same idea, but now to the outside. A little bit safer option in his dead zone. And the same idea, I want to keep that energy going in that direction. And from this point, you can either think of this as, well, it's just a shomanate to the other side, on the other side, and it can be just your hand involved in the chin. You can also just envelop the poor guy and get all the way up into the walkie, basically, the armpit, and the whole thing just draped across their shoulders, and keeping them going. Again, splitting that energy, keeping the stick going that way, and he was kind of going that way about, and to play with and explore. One thing I had noticed is, like, if he's coming, switch it just because it'll mess with my head. I've noticed that if I start my little Gyaku action or something, when you can go ahead and bring your foot even, just for the sake of demonstration. See where his feet are? They're kind of outside of my box. And I start here and I start trying to push on him. It doesn't do much. He can kind of walk back with that. But if I draw him in a little bit further to where his feet are more in between mine, inside my box. Sorry, I bumped you on the chin.
It works.
Elbow works too. It seems to be a little bit more effortless, right? So we're just inviting him in, welcome, and hugging the guy, rather than shooting a little bit too early and trying to jump on him, and he can usually walk back on it. So you might think about, where is uke relative to you before you start your thing? Another couple of things I wanted to throw out there, again, just to play with. Nick had talked about, and this is kind of fun, I often tell my kids that the chin is magic. And often wherever the chin or the jawline or the head goes, kind of the rest of the body has to go. And as you're getting into your Gyaku position, this turning of the head past the chin and turning it sideways has a way of kind of knocking their glasses off, which is what we want. So you might play with that just a little bit and kind of feel what that's like to try and still attack a guy when you're like this. Another thing you might play with, and I've had some success with, the little movement in the walk, this kind of rise and fall. Like, where the heck do we ever do that? Same idea with with his chin, raising it up and then stepping sideways and kind of dropping into it. It's kind of fun. Anyway, go back to as you were. What you see what happens. Yay! I got a lot that I want to go over, so I want to give you enough time to do the thing. So let me know if I'm cutting you short. But at the same time, there's kind of a lot that I want to talk about too. So you can take home and disregard. So one thing I want you to be aware of in Gyaku Gamayate, actually, hand the stick off to your friend here. We'll go stickless, and we'll move on. I'll just go this side. Is a dead hand, and sometimes it's nice when a knife threat works, and we get that what you were calling it, that biochemical something reaction where something's in their face and they jump for you, which is great when it works. I've worked with guys that does not work. I could do that all day, and they're just like a zombie or something like that. But sometimes I've noticed, myself included, by all means, this hand gets kind of dead, and not that I want you to be stiff and rigid or anything, but I think of I don't know, I like the idea of ki, of this kind of energy flowing through and out and out the fingertips. And one of the things I've noticed, say in Randori, if I get here and I start into my Gyaku Gamayate and he brings this other hand up to stop that because he knows it's coming, if my hand is kind of limp and just kind of dead, he has usually a good chance of doing something with it. But when the hand is just live, you've got ki shooting out your fingertips. Even if they get the hand up there, I find it's a little bit harder for them to deal with it. So anyway, just think about live, active hands rather than floppy hands. Anyway, so let's move on to the next one. So now we're taking a forward step, and rather than be kind of out here in front of the guy where we maybe like to be so we can jump on his head, we've shot a little deep. My hand is on this side of his head now. Right? So all I'm going to do is just relax. He's my buddy. He's my friend. The hand here is going to attach to his thigh. Yeah, you might. I'm trying to stay in front of the camera, so you might come around here. I'm just attaching this hand to my thigh, and he kind of has to go wherever that goes. And this hand is draped across the shoulder. And I'm going to take a step right out of the walk just to this back diagonal corner. Switch sides. So we've shot, and I'm attaching them to me and stepping back into that corner. Right? So basically a form of Ushirwaki, what we're making. You can do with a hand transfer if you want, and oh crap, I just happened to be here. Or you can just jump right to it. He's bent over a little bit, so for me to just immediately start pulling him back might be a little counterintuitive, so I might let him cycle a little bit first before I do my thing. And I've had to take a few extra steps to walk with him, but that's okay. I'm not trying to force it. I'm trying to gently escort him to the ground. You'd like to have a seat, wouldn't you? Right? So, just draping the hands, attach that hand to your thigh. And also, too, one of the things I see with the Shirawate, we have a tendency to just get the fingers involved, and we try to pull the guy down, and he just sort of walks with us. But if he just stands there and I just kind of put my hands on his shoulders with just the fingers, it doesn't really do a whole lot to your posture, does it? Right, but something about putting my whole palms on his man boobs there, his breasticles, the whole palms on there has a way of just sort of sinking those shoulders down a lot easier. So get the whole thing on there, right? Okay, we sure what? Play to that just a little bit. The same basic entry. I'm going to the outside and I'm shooting a bit deep. And some of you have probably already wandered into this territory where after I've attached this hand to my thigh, and I can keep this circular motion going, and again I'm screwing with his chin and getting his head a bit cocked to the side. It's hard to walk like that. See? And we get kind of a nice Arimi Nagi idea. If he ever comes up, which he does not. But that's fine. I just don't let him out. I don't let him off the hook. Escorting him to the ground. Very nice. Now, he may or may not relinquish his weapon. We don't know. Sometimes you get people with different reactions. They may freak out, and falling to the ground becomes more important than hanging on to the stick. They worry about that. Other times they may hang on to it. So, when they've gone to the ground, and we've followed them, and I've still got he's not going to just let that go. Right? And he's going to, and rather than get in a tug of war with him, the nice thing is it's a huge lever that you're talking about physics. The idea of just me kind of turning around has a way of peeling that out of their fingers. Or, I want to break your fingers one more time.
Okay.
Or kind of walking over his head tends to pry it out, and then of course you have your little lovely Mawashi type armbar. And personally, I'd rather have them face down than face up, where all their weapons are pointed at Mother Earth. But just using that the Joe, if they're not going to let go, as a lever, and it'll just kind of has a tendency to pop out. Right, cool. Harimi Nagi. Cool. All right. We've beaten up some bad guys. Find other ways to beat them up. So now we're doing this sidestep and this sort of hand transition, right, left, right. And now I find myself underneath instead of over for whatever reason. And I'm going to get hold of the Joe loosely. Now I actually have kind of two options here that you can explore, and you guys are probably find more than that. I can, with this sort of motorcycle revving grip, you'll find that it has a way of doing funky things to his elbow. And if I add to that a sort of Mayatoshi, I'll aim you right through the goalpost there. Yeah, and you get a kind of a rolling out idea to this this back corner. You find this line down there, but just that little motorcycle grip is kind of fun. And then you add to that a shearing and entering into their space. It's kind of fun. Yeah.
When I ride a motorcycle, I go this way, not this way.
Well, that just goes to show how often I drive a motorcycle. The little handle on my bicycle, and it makes a ding, ding, ding. That thing.
That thing.
I don't know. Then the little tassels hanging off my handlebars.
That little thing. Oh, we just talked about
Yeah, you had it for breakfast. Another idea, same kind of thought, is to keep this turning motion. So now he's taken another step forward, and so now the line is down more forward. And I can project him a little bit in more of a forward rather than kind of almost a Sumitoshi Mayatoshi-ish kind of thing. This could be more of a straightforward Mayatoshi, but just this action of turning, it's kind of a flywheel.
Yeah.
You might think it's kind of Big Ten like, joining and turning, and you get this sort of a flywheel effect. And then, of course, add to that the shearing across and projecting idea. Yeah. So, play with that. Force them to go further. Okay, so now we're...
Sure.
Come on. Okay, so now we're going to... These have been a little bit proactive. Or a little... Well, not proactive, but at least as the guys coming in, we're advancing and converging, joining. So for whatever reason, I'm just taken off by surprise. And I've got to connect with it, but I have to absorb it just a little bit first. I'm not quite ready to go forward yet for whatever reason. And this is that sort of pivoting back action that we were talking about. And catching it, and as he cycles through, I'm going to put it back into his rear corner. Right, so it's kind of I don't know what the hell that is. Last time I likened something to a machine, JW made fun of me. So,
Like a choo-choo train.
a choo-choo train. Yeah.
Choo-choo train.
All right, a little far away to start. We'll measure mine. Right. So we're absorbing that a little bit and putting it into that back corner, and it can be a back fall, it can be a rollout kind of thing, however you like. So I'm gonna come at you. Yeah, that's all right. So other side. Not that that's wrong. That's just something different. Yeah. Yeah, you get this sort of this neat. The natural grip on the Joe. This hand is kind of curling that way. This hand is kind of curling that way, and so this sort of motion almost becomes natural to the guy to keep his grip going the way it was already going. And then of course letting them cycle through that motion and then putting them in the back corner. So play with that. So now kind of a follow-up idea of that same kind of entry, and as he's coming, I'm taking a step back and I'm absorbing the energy, and he does not like that. And so maybe he's going to pull back a little bit. Yeah, and we get kind of a Shio-nage type idea. I'm just going to go wherever he pulls the Joe. The important thing is that you're doing it with your center. That's probably a given, I guess, or sound like a broken record. But I think there's a tendency with the Joe to kind of let your arms, whatever, get out of center, get up behind you, get ahead of you. But I'm just pushing, and some of you are doing this. Some of you are doing the sumitoshi, to that corner, but then also to that corner, which you can most definitely do. You see some of that in the Jo Nage section of Sankara. But I can also just sort of driving up. Yeah, and you may get that. Or you may just get, kind of a Shio-Nage type of backfall. But the idea is just going with that energy wherever he wants to go. I'm gonna go. Oh, okay. Oh, he wanted to go that way, so I should have followed him that corner. But say he'd give me my damn stick back. There we go. Right. So play with that. See what happens. We don't have time to play with. You can play with them with open mat, I guess, if you really, really want to. But officially, we'll bow. But there's some of you had already started playing with these ideas, and that's cool. There's a number of ways to enter it. Sorry, wrong time. Of creating these sort of arcs, these little two ends of the Jo going up and down, and you get into these sort of crossed arm screaming monkey, what Lou calls them. I'm not sure where he got the name. I think it's Ju-Nage or something, because the number 10 is in Japanese, it basically looks like a plus sign. You gotta get your arms crossed up.
Does that relate to screaming monkeys?
I don't, yeah, I guess.
It comes from Kyle's song.
Is that Kyle? Okay. I thought it was,
For the screaming monkeys.
and then there's ideas where we get into sort of a oshi to oshi type of idea that we could play with, but perhaps we'll do that kind of stuff another time. But it's fun. I mean, really, you could probably go ad infinitum. It's just an exploration, as I was saying, of Aikido principles. I don't think there's anything that I have said to anybody or that I've heard being taught, hey, do this, do that to make the technique work better, that you wouldn't also say empty-handed. Really, I don't think there was any real difference. If anything, working with the Jo will teach you, I think, where there's a natural tendency to, once I grab it, I want to start doing stuff with my arms. I want to try and do stuff with the Jo. And, we've got to forget about that. And it's just an extension of my own body, right? That's, projecting our centers and all that. So,
To me, when I use the weapon, it exposes in me things that I've been sort of skating by on by not having good technique that I can sort of get by with empty-handed. You give me a stick, and all of a sudden that
it sort of amplifies.
It amplifies my mistake, and I can't force it to work anymore. And I've got so I love this stuff.
Cool. Well, I could have said it better myself. I will end on that. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it quite a bit.